through the darkness. Running through the darkness. Running through the darkness. We don't need no love. Looking for a place to hide. We protect you from the cold. Your life seems so meaningless. We satisfy your need. You search for the gate to a better life. You just need to take my hand.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Between the Covers. I'm your host, Nix.
And I'm Ophelia.
And tonight, we have a special surprise for you guys. We did not read a book. Instead, we are going to read you guys fan fiction because everybody loves terrible fan fiction.
Oh my god, yes. Which fan fiction are we going to read tonight?
Well, tonight we're reading Harry Potter fan fiction.
Oh my god, girl, get out.
Fine. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Harry Potter fan fiction. We've selected two. We're going to read. They're very short, so we're going to read each one, and then we're going to have a short discussion, and we hope you guys enjoy it. So I think Ophelia wants to start.
Let me just pull it up here. Should I read the disclaimer?
Obvi.
Disclaimer. These characters belong to J.K. Rowling and various publishing houses and not to me. This story occurs right after the events in Half-Blood Prince. Paying your dues. The unkempt guard pocketed his newly acquired galleons and turned to lead the slight figure down the dark corridor. The woman followed slowly, her hood hiding her face from the curious. The air in the prison was dark, dank, and she could almost smell the fear, desperation, and hopelessness that mingled with the stench of filth. She shuddered, involuntarily. Although she knew the conditions were deplorable, they were nothing compared to the icy feel of death that had existed when the Dementors had guarded the prison. As she followed the greedy guard, she wondered at the condition she would find Lucius in when she reached him. It was hard to picture him in this place. It was such a contrast to his beauty and his spirit. He was not a man to be beaten or run down. They passed other prisoners in their cells, but she kept her eyes forward. She did not want to see them, to think about this place and the desolate souls encased within. Her thoughts of seeing him again propelled her forward any time she felt the urge to turn around and flee. He was expecting her. She couldn't disappoint him. Not any more than she already had. At last, they had reached his cell. It was separate from the others, secluded from the general population. This didn't surprise her. He had money, and while that wouldn't have mattered much with the Dementors, the Ministry's desperate attempts to guard the prison resulted in a less than scrupulous bunch.
Scrupulous?
Scrupulous, sorry. A little too much wine.
Well, we know. Ophelia, one glass and...
I know. Well, I had to fill it extra large tonight because Scorch isn't with us.
R.I.P. Scorch.
We'll miss him. I mean, you know, he works the board so well, and he's so hot and gorgeous and everything. But you know, we're just gonna have to press on.
Girl, bye.
Scrupulous bunch, and they at least appreciated the worth of a gallon. The guard led her into the small area and then seemed to melt back into the walls. She was sure he was still around, watching them, but at least they had the appearance of being alone. He had not yet turned to face her, and yet she was sure he knew she was there. His clothes were worn and graying from the grime that seemed to permeate the place. Still, there was a regal air about him that took her breath away in its familiarity. This was her love, her Lucius. He turned toward her then, his eyes gray, piercing through the armor she had so carefully constructed. My dear, he had said softly, come closer so I can see you better. It is always so bloody dark in this hideous place. She did as he instructed, just as she always did. He had seemed to cast a spell on her those many years ago, and she knew she would never be free of it. Not that it mattered. She loved him, and she would do anything for him, which brought them to this point in time. She was close to him now, close enough for him to touch her, even though he did not. Well, he continued. His voice was low in case the guard was still there listening. What is happening? Tell me. Has Draco succeeded? She hesitated. How could she tell him? Selfishly, she wanted a moment to relish being near him after so much time apart. Just a moment before. His eyes narrowed at her hesitation, obviously fearing the worst. Tell me, he commanded, grabbing her arm tightly. Lucius, she said, not flinching or pulling away, let me begin by telling you that Dumbledore is dead. This is good news indeed.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers. Lucius, she said, not flinching or pulling away, let me begin by telling you that Dumbledore is dead. This is good news indeed. Then Draco has succeeded. But the look on her face told him differently. Not exactly. I am losing my patience, my dear, he growled at her. His face was inches from hers. I suggest you tell me what is happening with my son. She realized her moment to relish being near Lucius was over. She'd had enough. Really, Lucius? She said, finally pulling her arm away. There's no reason to bully me. After all, I'm here of my own accord. I have come precisely for that reason, to give you information. Perhaps we could just skip over you trying to intimidate me and just get on with it, shall we? As you wish, my dear, he agreed silkily. However, if I remember correctly, that used to be your favorite part. She just glared at him. Although she too remembered those days, she would not let him seduce her. Not yet, anyway. God damn it, Scott Martin. Very well, he continued. Explain what has happened. I'm afraid I do not get any news in here. Snape was the one to kill Dumbledore. Snape? She could tell he was surprised and angry. How could you let this happen, he demanded. How could I have stopped Lucius? How could I have stopped it, Lucius? Sorry, I'm getting all steamy. You could have followed the plan. I trusted you to do what was needed. Now the Dark Lord will be furious with Draco for failing, and he will have him killed. Lucius, he is safe. He is with Snape. And how long do you think it will take the Dark Lord to find him? He stared at her, his eyes penetrating. You have failed me. Although the words were said calmly, she felt as if he had slapped her. I did all I could. She was almost pleading with him to understand. I do not believe that, he answered. You have done more. You should have done more. More? Her voice rose in anger. Did you say more, Lucius? I betrayed them. They trusted me, and I betrayed them. I am the reason Dumbledore is dead at this moment. A man who did nothing to me but believe in me and help me any chance he could. I went against everything I believed in.
Who
for
is
you.
this bitch?
It was all over for you. Lucius, excuse me, don't interrupt, Nix. It's rude. There was no other reason. And yet you think I could have done more? She yanked off her hood in anger. She wanted him to see her face clearly, to see how much he had hurt her. Her curly hair was piled on her head, but tendrils had broken free of the binds and framed her lovely face. Calm yourself, Rosmerta. Rosmerta?
Who the fuck is Rosmerta?
Who the fuck is Rosmerta? He instructed her with a whispered command. Before we have half the guards in the prison down here. She continued to glower at him, her chest heaving in anger. While I do admit that you have done a great deal for me, I have to point out that you are not actually in prison, and you are not on the run from the Dark Lord. In fact, if things went according to plan, everyone now believes you were under the Imperious curse. So now no one actually knows that you betrayed them. Is that not correct, Madame Rosmerta? Yes, but I know. You also know that you will be rewarded greatly for your assistance, my dear. I do not want your money, Lucius, she replied, still angry. I was not talking of money, my sweet Rosmerta.
Ooh.
He lifted his hand and lightly touched the side of her face. His voice was now low and husky, and her body reacted to each velvety syllable. Ooh, the skin is steamy. His hand traveled to her throat as his thumb stroked the vein pulsing there. He leaned into her and took a long sniff. You smell so sweet, so clean.
Does it really say that? Long sniff?
I swear. It has been so long since I have been around anything clean. He slowly ran his tongue over her jaw, tracing it to her ear. You taste delicious, he whispered before taking her earlobe into his mouth. Rosmerta melted against him. It had been so long since they were close, since he had touched her, kissed her, licked her. Lucius, she breathed. It wasn't a statement, but more a plea for him to not stop. My dear, I am looking forward to tasting you thoroughly. I have been starving for far too long. But first I need to know if you followed my orders exactly. He reached into her cloak, and she knew he was pleased with the results. Lovely, he murmured, as he drew back the cloak to reveal her lush, naked body. She gasped as the sudden coolness of the prison air hit her fervid body.
Fevered?
Fevered. Fevered.
Too much wine. I can't handle you, Ophelia.
Oh, Nix.
Bitch, you extra.
Lucius, she protested. The guard, I think he's still here, watching. I have no doubt that you are correct, my dear, he purred in her ear, so let us not disappoint him. Rosmerta wanted to protest further, but found that the thought of some unseen person watching them was strangely erotic. Until Lucius, she realized she had never had such decadent thoughts. She felt as if she was on fire. She wasn't sure if she was reacting to the thought of the other man watching, or Lucius' voice and wandering hand, and at this point she didn't even care. What do you think, my dear? Would our poor guard risk losing his hands just to touch you once? He leaned in closer to her ear and whispered, I would. Please, Lucius, she cried. Do you want me, my sweet? He said silkily. Yes, she whispered desperately.
Ooh, desperately.
He guided her towards the small dirt-looking cot in the corner of the room that was covered by an old blanket. The cool air surrounded her as he discarded her cloak. He pulled her down onto the bed. He was still completely clothed, but this was not something unusual. She wanted to undress him, to feel his body against hers, but she knew that she would have to follow his lead. He touched every part of her body. The feeling of his hands was exciting and yet familiar. He knew her so well, what she liked, what she didn't like. He was teasing her and punishing her. He was still upset about Draco. Her thoughts didn't dwell on that. How could they when he was doing such wondrous things to her? They both reached a fevered pitch quickly. It had been so long, and the guard was still watching. Lucius unclothed just enough to do what he needed to do. Rosmerta, although disappointed, enjoyed the feel of the rough clothes against her sensitive skin. Their release came swiftly. He cleaned them with a flick of his hand while Rosmerta retrieved her discarded cloak. I'm surprised you were able to perform magic here. Only the simplest spells are allowed, he answered. Money does have its rewards. Trying to draw out the time before she had to leave, she gazed lovingly at the wizard in front of her. She touched his cheek, gently, and for a second, he let himself give in to the tender feelings. You will look out for my son, he asked, breaking the moment. I expect you to bring me any news. Of course, Lucius, she responded. Do you think I will be able to return? I do, he said with a smirk, and I expect next time you won't even need galleons.
Okay, who the fuck is Rosmerta? I don't remember.
I have no idea. Do you think that's not his wife, right?
No, he's married to Narcissa, Bellatrix's sister.
Maybe it's one of the maids or something like that.
Hold on.
Who's Rosmerta? I don't recall that.
I definitely don't recall that. I'm actually going to look it up really quickly. Harry Potter, Rosmerta? Madame Rosmerta was the landlady of the Three Broomsticks pub in Hogsmeade Village. What a random fucking character. Weird.
Well, she seems quite familiar with Lucius's broomstick.
Are you serious? Oh my god. Okay, what did you think of it?
Well, I thought it was okay. It certainly built and was steamy, but they kind of just the sex was kind of an afterthought, it seemed.
Yeah. He pulled down. Was he removed enough clothing to do what he needed to do?
So did he just pull his penis out?
Maybe. I mean, they did say his clothes were rough against her tender parts, or like tender flesh or something like that. So was he wearing, I don't know, like, was he wearing like a prison uniform?
He must have been in rags or some kind of ratty prison uniform.
I guess. I mean, he strikes me as the kind who would wear like velvets and silks and stuff. So
well,
like,
he is in prison.
Yeah, but he's fucking rich.
Well, sure. I mean, money obviously bought him a few simple spells and, a night with Rosmerta, but who's to say that it's going to buy him some nice digs? He is being punished.
I suppose. I guess overall it was more well written than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I thought all of the build up to the sex was really nice. But the sex itself was just sort of, and then they got the job done.
Right, like.
And it's like, well, I want to hear about his broom going in and out of her little pub.
His wand. You want to hear about what spells his wand is casting?
It seems like he's a little fast at casting his spells.
Well, they did say it had been a while. For both of them? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe he should have taken care of himself before to last a little longer.
I'm sorry, what do you mean, taking care of himself?
Masturbated.
What? I can't. It's so ridiculous. Ophelia, I really love your beard. It's really cute.
Thank you. I'm really trying the So Natural feminist thing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, kudos
Body
to
hair
you.
is beautiful.
Oh, my goodness. I really hate this configuration of the podcast, to be honest with you.
Why?
Because we have to look at each other and they should be looking at my.
Well, we don't have to look at each other. I mean, I've mostly just been looking at the camera. I mean, you do look beautiful tonight, Nix, but.
Thanks, you too, Ophelia.
Thanks. The camera's really eating us up. And we've got all these new cameras too that we can't even use because fucking Scorch isn't here.
Yeah, God damn it, Scorch.
God damn it, Scorch. I don't care how nice your penis is. You're not allowed to just miss episodes, okay? Penis.
Oh, wow. Okay. I would love to know how you know what Scorch's penis looks like. Oh, wait, never mind.
Because you showed me a picture, bitch.
That's right, I did.
And I didn't exactly look away.
Okay. Stop. Oh, my God. All right, let's move on.
Which one did you prepare?
I prepared something called Difficult Decisions Part 3. And it's about Ginny and Malfoy, I guess. There were a lot of, I guess, how do I say this without offending people? Homosexual fanfics to pick from. But I figured that, Ophelia, I know how uncomfortable you are when we talk about homosexuality, so I thought that it would be better to pick one.
You do know my boy toy.
Oh my God. Okay, all right, let's just jump right in. Difficult Decisions, Part 3. Ginny stood in the front door of Malfoy Manor, waiting for someone to answer. It had passed 3 weeks since Narcissa had been murdered, and Draco hadn't left the manor yet. Snape was worried, and so was she. So she decided to clear things up. He couldn't stay there for the rest of his life. Lord Malfoy is not at home, and Lenny does not know when Master will be back, the small house elf said. I'm sorry, Lenny, but I don't believe you, she said, and she almost stepped the elf while getting in the manor. Oh, by the way, I'm going to read this verbatim as it was written so that you guys know. I'm not stupid. I understand there are words missing here. Master is not at home, miss, the elf scram with his voice full of despair. I know he is, and don't worry, he won't be mad at you. I'll make sure of that, she told him, heading to the library of the manor. She knew he would be there. Ophelia, I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't be texting while I'm trying to read.
Sorry, I was just looking at a picture of a penis.
Oh my God, you slut.
I was just trying to really understand what they completely look like. I've only really seen the tip. I'm a virgin.
I can't.
We're so funny.
You're ridiculous. Okay. When she finally reached the library door, she opened slowly and stepped in. Master, I said miss you weren't home, but she did not listen. I listened, but I knew you were here. That's fine. Linny, forget it and leave us, Draco said without looking away from the papers he was reading. Linny nodded quickly and left. Why aren't you leaving your house? She said angrily, standing in front of him in the opposite side of the desk. I don't feel like to, he said, still not taking his eyes from his work. Look at me, her temper rose up. There, I'm looking. He lifted his head and looked straight at her brown eyes. Good, then answer me. Why aren't you leaving this cold house? And she glanced to the room, noticing the darkness that was broken only by 3 candles and the small flames in the fireplace. Why is this so dark? How can you even read in here? First, I already told you I don't feel like going out. Second, I like darkness. I actually love it. And third, I'm used to it. It would be harder for me to read if this was all lightened up. Draco, her voice calming down and running through her lips softly. I know it's hard to accept your mother's death and that it's painful. I've been through that when Charlie died, but I survived and so will you if you start living your life again. It's not that. He stood up, anger rising inside him. His blood was reaching the boiling point inside his veins. She didn't understand. It wasn't the fact that she died. It was the fact that she had died because of him and right under his nose. She was dead because she was his mother. You don't understand. It's not your fault, you know, she murmured. I don't want to talk about it. He sat down again and got back to work. She looked at him sadly and gave up. He was so stubborn and she didn't want to fight. Jenny turned away and left the room. Wait, she heard his voice saying tiredly when she was about to close the door. Stay. I need you tonight. I need you so much. She stared at him. He was still gazing at his work, but his gray eyes weren't moving. She could see sadness and loneliness around his face. He was waiting for her reaction. She walked until she was behind his sitting figure. He didn't even blink. She slid her hand in his silver blonde hair and down to his neck. He closed his eyes, feeling her butterfly touch in his skin. He turned his magical chair around and opened his legs. She got near him, looking deep into his eyes. His lips touched hers lightly. She trembled. The strong hands of the man in front of her held her up by the waist, and he got up. He kissed her, and she gasped slightly as his hands pushed her dress up smoothly. They broke the kiss only for a few seconds, and she saw her dress falling to the floor with her bra. He looked at her with desire. His breath was caught inside him. She was perfect, even more perfect than the last time. He needed her in that moment. She started unbuttoning his shirt while he kissed her neck, her shoulder, and finally the place that made her almost scream with passion, her nipple. Once his shirt was off, she unbuttoned his trousers. Kissing and caressing each other, they managed to get everything off of the desk, throwing it all to the floor. Draco leaned back Jenny and started kissing her nipple again, then her stomach, and moving down until he kissed her belly button. Ooh. Jenny thought she couldn't take it anymore. I want you. Now, she whispered breathlessly. He smirked and looked at her with hunger. He took the rest of her clothes off, and his too, and made love so passionately, Jenny thought she would reach heaven. They stood there for several hours, enjoying the closeness of their bodies. Only when the big clock told them it was 9 o'clock in the afternoon, Jenny got up and dressed. I have to go, she said slowly. I know, he said, not taking his eyes away from her. She leaned against him and kissed him on the cheek. Draco held her by the waist and gave her the kiss he wanted. When they moved away, she was breathless. Draco smirked at her and touched her lips gently. I truly have to go, she said. He nodded and she walked towards the door. Thank you, he said. She looked behind doubtfully. Thank you for being by my side. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you make me feel, though I'm not even sure of what it is. You're welcome, Mr. Malfoy. She smiled and winked at him. Draco smiled back like she had never seen him do. Ginny knew she was walking on slippery floor. She was supposed to be seducing Marcus Flint, but she could not deny what she felt for Draco Malfoy. She was now sure it was not just lust, it was something deeper. Maybe she was truly falling for the ferret boy. This is so ridiculous and trite.
Maybe she just liked the way that he bullied her brother. It just really got her steaming.
She stepped out of the manor into the cold night and walked to the front gate. She could not apparate inside the manor's grounds. The wind was whispering in her ears and it was drying her mouth. It was so cold. She opened the gate and got outside of the manor. She took her wind out. "Good night, Ginny," she heard the voice of the last person she wanted to see saying behind her. "Good night, Marcus. How was Mr. Malfoy? Devastated, I hope. I hope my efforts gave me some reason to be proud." "What are you talking about?" "Oh, my dear, you can't be that naive. The night of the ball, while you were shagging Mr. Draco Malfoy, I was taking Mrs. Malfoy life away from those beautiful blue eyes." Marcus smiled devilishly. "I hope you comforted him because he will have his heart broken again." "You bastard! You have seen nothing. Do you know where Mr. Malfoy was last night?" Ginny shook her head. "I didn't think so. The truth is, no one knows but him and me. And last night, 2 people were murdered. Natalie and Sarah Scrimgeour. You know who they are, don't you?" Ginny knew. They were the wife and daughter of the Minister of Magic. "What do you want with this? Draco did not kill them." This is so hard to read. "I know, but nobody else knows, and when I have proof he did, I'm sure the minister won't mind sending some dementors to give him a good night kiss." "You son of..." "Careful with the language, Miss Weasley. I do not want my future fiancé talking like that." "Your what?" "If you do not want your precious Draco Malfoy to kiss a Dementor, then you will marry me this week. You won't explain anything to him. You won't even talk to him again. That is, if you don't want him to kiss a Dementor," he said playfully. "You are, Don't finish that sentence. "It may come back to you when we are married. Your wedding dress will be sent to you tomorrow, and you can invite some of your pathetic friends to the ceremony. Oh, and there's one more thing. A little theater I want you to play. Tomorrow there will be a small party for former Slytherins. I want you to attend, but I'm not going. You're going to make company to Bradley Bowl. I don't know if you knew him. He was a beater on the Slytherins team before Crabbe and Goyle. At the party, you will see Draco, but you will not talk to him. You will pretend you don't know him and that you are having the time of your life with Bowl. If you have to kiss him, do it. Just make Mr. Malfoy feel as bad as I felt when I saw you with him. Did I mention that if you, for any moment, don't play that part, Malfoy will be delivered to the Ministry and to the Dementors?" He smirked. "Good night, Ms. Weasley," and then disapparated. Ginny looked behind and saw Draco's shadow moving to the library. How would she do that? She couldn't do that to him and her. "But if you don't, there will be no he," her mind said. Ginny felt tears falling down her eyes. She had to do it, no matter what she felt. She had to do it. And she did. She saw Draco's pain inside his eyes at the party. She saw the feeling of betrayal reflected in his eyes, and it pained her as much. Bowl forced her to kiss him, and it was even more painful. She felt like a slut. I'm sorry. She felt like she was the worst person in the world. But she did what Flint told her to do. She did not talk to Draco. The image of him being kissed by Dementors haunted her mind. A few days later, she married Flint for everyone's astonishment. The end.
Well, that certainly took a turn.
That was ridiculous. That was so...
Yet again, the sex was an afterthought.
What sex? Oh, they made love passionately, and then they stood for hours. What the fuck? All right, first of all, who's standing around for hours after you fuck?
That sounds exhausting. If they're doing it right, I shouldn't be able to stand afterwards.
I thought you were a virgin.
I mean, I am a virgin. I don't know how penises work.
Oh my god. I wish Scorch were here because we could really use somebody like running like a live feed.
How do you mean? To see if there's comments and stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten some pretty good feedback about my looks tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you want to share with the public?
No, I think they all know how fabulous I look.
Well, I just want to say I think your eyeliner is like totally on fleek.
Thanks. I really like yours too. That lip
Thanks.
color is gorgeous, girl.
Oh, thanks. So is yours. I really love the nude lip you have going on.
Thank you. It's kind of my signature Ophelia thing.
Yeah, I noticed. Maybe next time we can get Scorch to move the camera so it's like a better angle.
This is a great angle, honey. You just have to turn your body and work it.
Well, I don't have like a freakishly long elephant neck like some of us, so I can't like just slide my head over to talk into the mic.
Oh, wow. That's rather unfortunate.
Wow. How long do we have a time check on this?
I don't know. I'm drunk.
Alrighty. Let's see.
Can you see?
No, I can't. It's too far.
Well, we'll just go until whenever. It's cool. We're doing a 2-parter of this.
Oh yeah,
We
you
should
guys
talk
should
about
totally
this a little
talk
more,
about.
though.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, is that your blue steel look?
No, this is how you show off the nude lips, honey.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that that's not very interesting for our audio listeners and the people who aren't watching.
Well, if they're only listening, they're missing half the gorgeousness.
Clearly.
So tell me, how did you feel about that one?
It was horrible.
Horrible,
It was
right?
just terrible.
Didn't make any sense. Why would Jenny fuck a guy that bullies her brother? It just doesn't make sense unless she's just a bitch.
Well, she did feel like a slut.
Well,
also, I don't understand Jenny's connection to Malfoy in this context at all.
yeah, it seemed kind of random that she was just at his place.
Yeah, and like there was the mention of Snape earlier that was like Snape was worried and so was Jenny, and it's like what? Like isn't Snape dead? And oh, sorry, spoilers. Like it was a little discombobulated, the story itself. Also, I kind of got the feeling that whoever wrote this either is an idiot or like not a native English speaker.
Maybe both. Those aren't mutually exclusive, you know?
That's true. Hey, that's my phrase. You can't steal that from me.
Sorry, Nix. You snooze, you lose.
I was trying to see. I already closed the tab because I'm an idiot.
I don't know. It didn't really do much for me. I mean, even it was a little descriptive leading up, but they just leave out the sex. It's just like close off, and then they did it.
And then they did it, and then they stood around for a few
How
hours.
did they do it? What
until
position?
9 o'clock in the.
Oh my god.
What was it? It was like
9 in the afternoon.
9 o'clock in the afternoon.
What the fuck is that?
It's Wizarding World, okay?
It's wizard time.
Wizard time is different, okay?
Oh my goodness. Like, how did they do it? What position? What, like, how wet was it? There's so much descriptors we're missing.
Did I just put? Oh, I just posted that twice because I'm a moron.
What are you doing?
I'm sorry.
Now you're making it terrible for our listeners.
I know.
Put
I'm
your
looking at my
fucking phone down, Nix. God damn it.
Oh my god! Wait, did I?
You always have your phone in your hand. What the fuck? Put it down, bitch.
Stop!
I'm so sorry, everyone.
Stop it! You just made me delete the fucking link.
We don't need the link anymore. You remember the story.
No, the link in the podcast group.
Why do you need that?
No, I was looking at it and then you smacked my phone and it hit my.
Why does it matter?
So our viewers can click on it and watch. God damn it!
It's already posted.
It just got deleted. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Why?
Because you smacked my phone out of my hand.
Why the fuck were you looking at it then? Repost it.
Oh my god,
This is unreal.
You're unreal.
Why are you looking at the link in the middle of the podcast, girl? Okay?
I was gonna.
We're trying to do a show. It doesn't matter. You can look at that shit after.
Oh my god, you're such a Nazi.
Well, you know what? Someone's got to keep the whip cracking.
Yeah, well, it's not you. We all know how notoriously terrible you are with any sort of BDSM.
Well, I at least have to try. You're over here fucking on your phone all floobity doobity.
Excuse me. You're the one who's like texting people, your admirers
I
during
was
the
receiving
podcast.
compliments on my
How
look
is-
tonight.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not looking at things that could get deleted. Is it still not posted?
Yes, because you're yelling
Well,
at me.
then be quick about it, girl.
Oh my
God damn it.
goodness.
Jesus fucking Christ. This is so unprofessional. Why are you
Ophelia,
looking
this
at
is
me?
not-
Post it.
This
Post
is not
it.
likely.
Unreal. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Sorry, I'm just
Scorch
had a
isn't
little
here,
too
and then
much.
Nyx just thinks she can do whatever the fuck she wants on this podcast, and it creates a fucking mess.
You're a mess.
And I've got to sit here and look beautiful and try and make up for her clumsiness. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Shut
I'm
the
so
fuck
sorry.
up.
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate you bearing with us. We had probably so many likes and views on that, and you've already deleted it. Stop touching it now.
I'm
Is
not
it
touching
posted?
it. Yes, it should
Then
be.
close Facebook right fucking now. Because if it gets deleted again, I'm going to throw a fucking hissy fit, girl.
Ophelia, this is quite unlike you.
Well, we're getting around episode 10. We can't afford to have these like silly mistakes anymore.
Well, maybe if you would get off your ass and make some shirts, we could have things for our viewers.
Try me,
buy.
bitch.
Try me, bitch. Yeah, we really need in the future front facing for this podcast.
No, it's not going to happen. This table's staying like this. Stop talking about that. Talk about the story.
I already talked about the story.
So is that it? Are we done then?
No, we didn't talk about your story at all.
What?
We said like 3 things about your story.
We said a bunch about my story. We said 2 things about your story. Are you drunk?
No.
What is going on? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I told you that I thought that it was really poorly written and possibly written by someone who was not of the native English-speaking persuasion.
It feels like most of the things we read, they don't do a very good job describing the actual sex. It's all about the build-up.
Yeah, I mean...
I want to hear about thrusting and how wet it is.
sheathing things to the hilt.
Yes. I want to hear dirty, smutty things.
I know, me too.
How am I
Well,
ever going to
okay,
learn
here's the
about
problem, though.
penises if we don't hear about them?
Right. Here's the problem. So I know, I mean, I've read plenty of books that have very graphic sexual descriptions, but the problem is they're actually like good books. Like the story is also good and like the character development is there and like all of the stuff that like, I felt like we started this with the premise of it being like kind of poking fun at the genre of like really bad romance novels. And I just kind of expected more really bad romance novels to have more licentious details in them.
I agree. It seems like they're just bad romance novels from the novelty of them just being poorly written and bad and not like
Right.
the
and
sex scenes are like poorly written or novelty worthy.
maybe we're not looking far back enough. Like maybe we should start looking for ones that were written in like the 80s or something.
Yeah, it's possible. I know we looked at one that was from the 60s that seemed pretty juicy.
Yeah, we did. But that's we're saving that for a special
That's a special episode.
with a very
With
special
a very
guest.
special guest. What?
Nothing.
Girl, I know I'm glamorous, but you can't keep sitting there wide-eyed and shocked at how beautiful I am.
That's exactly what's happening. You're right. My apologies.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yes. Next week will be part 2 of our fan fiction extravaganza, and I believe the theme is going to be
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. So,
If you have any...
get ready to sheathe Sting in something wet and orcish.
If you have any suggestions of characters you want us to read a fan fiction about,
yes,
please comment and submit.
If you're trying to ship like a character pairing, please comment. send us
Otherwise,
an
it's just
email.
going to be Legolas everything.
Oh my god, yes. Legolas versus like Legolas x Legolas in like an AU setting where like he runs across him from a different dimension.
I want him to ride me like he rode that shield down the stairs.
You want him to ride you like a skateboard?
Yes.
I don't think that's how penises work.
Elf
Ophelia.
penises do.
Are they like
Maybe.
in the bottom of his feet or something?
Yeah, and they extend.
No, I think you're full of shit.
Okay, I have to admit, I don't know that much about penises.
You're ridiculous. Well, okay, throw up our plugs then. Scorch, Oh, wait, he's not here.
Oh, God. Fucking Scorch. He's going to hear it. Okay.
All right, as you can see at the bottom, these are our Instagram handles. So you can follow us and...
Marvel at our beauty.
Yeah, that. You can also follow us at Between the Covers Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook. You can email us at betweenthecoverspodcast@gmail.com. We have a Twitter, which is between_covers. We also think that you guys should check out our friends at the Bastard Sermon Podcast.
Especially, yeah, they're so hot. Cody, Luke, and Patrick. Talk about some yummy dudes. Really hilarious stuff.
Uh-huh. And of course, don't forget about our sponsor, Havoc Mead. They are the best mead, hands down, that you will have in the States and possibly in the world. They're distributed out of Vermont and Massachusetts, so just ask for them if you're in either of those states, and if you're not, maybe you should go to one of those states and pick up a 4-pack.
Live a little.
It's worth it. Trust me. It's totally worth it. And I don't know. Do you have anything else that you want to plug, Ophelia?
Nothing that's appropriate.
What, you want to plug your vagina with something?
Ew, don't say vagina. Gross.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us on this extra special podcast episode of Between the Covers. And we will plan on seeing you guys next week.
Bye.
Toodaloo. God damn it, Scorch.